Welcome, everyone. I am Michelle Gold, board chair at Holocaust Museum LA, the first Holocaust museum in the United States, founded in 1961 by survivors who wanted to create a safe space to display their special artifacts, to remember their family members and loved ones who had perished, and to educate future generations on the important lessons of the Holocaust. The museum is open 7 days a week and admission is always free to all California residents and students, fulfilling the mission of our founding to commemorate, educate, and to inspire. Before I introduce today's incredible program, I want to first acknowledge International Holocaust Survivor Day. Today, the world reflects and pays tribute to our inspiring and resilient survivors and their families who are their footprint to the future. Thank you all so much for joining us for today's family story time with Mona Golabek, a magical family event that will bring the Lisa Jura story, The Children of Willesden Lane, to life for a new generation of young readers. Mona Golbeck, Lisa Jura's daughter, a concert pianist, author, and a beloved friend of the museum, will share a special storytelling film based on her new children's book, Hold On to Your Music, featuring stunning illustrations by renowned Italian artist Sonia Possentini, and Mona herself at the piano, Mona beautifully telling her mother's story. Mona will also discuss her book, a new partnership with USC Shoah Foundation to launch the Willesden Project, an exciting education initiative that brings Lisa's story and its clear and inspiring messages to young people around the globe. We are absolutely thrilled to have Mona here with us today. Just a brief housekeeping. We will have time at the end of the program for questions, so you can type your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom window. And now, without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Mona Golbeck to tell us about her beautiful storytelling film, Hold On to Your Music. Mona, thank you so much for joining us.
I am so honored to be here. Thank you, Michelle, for such a beautiful introduction and to be part of a program for my favorite museum of the world. It's a true honor, especially today. And some of you out there know that many years ago, I woke up and a dream was born in my heart and soul. I was engaged to play the very piece that my mother had dreamed about making her debut in when she told me the story when I was a little girl. When she grew up in Vienna as a young child and dreamed of being a great pianist. And she would always board a trolley and go to her piano lesson, and this was in the 1930s. So I would hear these stories when I was a little child. And that day when I woke up to make my debut in the piece she dreamed about making her debut in, I thought, well, maybe I'm going to try to go out there and write a book. If I could get a story out there, I could inspire so many young people to the messages that my mother had told me about her story. So I never gave up. And one day I got a book published. Some of you know that, called The Children of Willesden Lane. And I've been so privileged to bring that story across the globe to hundreds of thousands of students in many different countries, many different languages. I've had the privilege of partnering with the museum to bring it here in Los Angeles to thousands of students when we did performances. But when I thought about the challenge of how do we keep these stories alive as the new generations come up, another dream was born inside of me. How do I make this story accessible to a 4-year-old, to a 5-year-old, to a 6-year-old? And I thought about an illustrated book, a simple way of telling the story. And that's when my dream came true, and I was able to have published from Little Brown the book Hold On to Your Music, with these great illustrations by the Italian artist Sonia Possentini. So we've come through an incredible year, astonishing. We've seen the resilience of the human spirit. And during that time, when we were writing the book, we also did a filming in my home back in Los Angeles. I'm actually speaking to all of you from New York right now, where I'm working. And we made a small story time film. And I invite you all now to enjoy that film. Sit back, and then we'll come back and be with you again together. And Michelle's going to ask me questions, and I have the opportunity to share a little bit more about my goals of bringing this story to young readers across the globe. And we'll take your questions as well. So I hope you enjoy now. Hold on to your music.
Did you know that a piece of music can tell a story? Your story. My story. Hello, my name is Mona. I am so happy to be with you here today to tell you a story of a little girl named Lisa who had a big dream to become a great concert pianist. I'm going to tell you the story through the music that she played and loved, and through a book called Hold On to Your Music. Let's begin. Snow-covered palaces sparkled as Lisa rode the trolley through the streets of Vienna toward her piano lesson. As she passed the symphony hall, she dreamed of the day when she would perform on a grand stage and play the music of Mozart and Beethoven. Lisa was going to her piano lesson. It was the most important hour of her week. She arrived at the studio of her piano teacher and began the lesson. Usually the professor would sit next to her. He would wave his hands in the air. He would sing along. He loved listening to Lisa. It made him so happy. But today, everything was different. He was standing and staring out the window with a sad look on his face. And Lisa thought something was wrong. Professor, am I playing badly? No, Lisa, you're playing beautifully, but I'm so sorry. I cannot teach you anymore. There are new laws against the Jews. I must ask you to leave. Lisa didn't understand. She was upset. How could this be, her piano lesson? But she said goodbye to the professor, and she left. She got home, sat down, and just cried. Her mother came out of the kitchen when she heard Lisa crying, came back with some music and said, Lisa, don't worry. I taught you before, I'll teach you again. Now you play the left hand, I'll play the right hand, and we'll make music together. Remember, Lisa, whatever tomorrow brings, always hold on to your music. It'll be your best friend. And mother and daughter played together as the music floated out the window. Well, the months passed, and Lisa's mother kept teaching her the piano. But bad things kept happening to the Jewish people. There were rumors that a war was coming. Lisa's parents decided that it was no longer safe to remain in Vienna, so they decided to send Lisa far away to England, where they hoped she would be safe and could follow her dream of her music. They told her about a train called the Children's Train, which would take her far away to England. They also told her that she would have to go all alone without them. Lisa was so frightened. And even though her mother told her that maybe she could find a new piano teacher in England, she was scared. She wondered what would happen to everyone that she knew. What would give her the courage to get on that train and say goodbye to everyone that she loved? The very last morning, Lisa walked through the apartment, memorizing every detail, determined to remember everything. And then the family left for the station. The train station was so crowded. Hundreds of mothers and fathers saying goodbye to their children, promising that they would see them very soon. Each child had a number around their neck. Lisa's was 158. And in those final moments at the train station, Lisa's mother gave her a gift that she would never forget. It was a gift of a few precious words. She took Lisa's face in her hands. Lisa, you must make me a promise. Never stop playing the piano. Hold on to your music, and I'll be with you through the music always. I promise, Mama. train, Lisa felt very alone. She wished the train would come to a screeching halt, but it kept rolling farther from home. All day and all night, Lisa heard the clickety-clack of the wheels as young children called out for their parents in their sleep. Lisa gazed through the window, pretending to play for the moonlit windmills. As she imagined the music, she felt less alone. The journey seemed to go on forever. Finally, they arrived in London. Hundreds of children with numbers around their necks came off the trains, waiting to be taken to their new homes. Number 158, boomed a woman with a wide smile, double-checking her list. Lisa clutched her suitcase and raised her hand. You're off to Willesden Lane, dear. They put her in a taxi, and she made her way through the grand city of London. The taxi turned on a street called Willesden Lane. Lisa looked out the window, and she saw an old two-story brick home with a garden full of lilacs. That's when she thought, maybe everything will be all right. She was greeted by Mrs. Cohen, the head of the house, and she saw lots of children talking in different languages. By the time dinner was served, Lisa had learned all the house rules and made a new friend. Gina told her there were 32 boys and girls living at Willesden Lane who had also left their families behind. Everyone at the house had to get a job to help with expenses of the house. So Gina got Lisa a job working long hours at a factory sewing uniforms for soldiers. They knew what was coming. She wrote many letters to her parents. Sometimes she would get a letter back. But when the war started, all the letters stopped. And Lisa wondered, would she ever see her parents again? She would come home at nighttime after a long day at the factory and stare at the corner where the old piano stood, tucked away. She was too nervous to touch it or play it. Many months passed. One night, when it was dark and late, she decided to go over to that piano and play it. She lifted up the lid. And like the best friend that you haven't seen in a long time, she hugged that piano. She sat down and played the beautiful music that her mother had taught her. One by one, the children came out of their rooms. There were dozens of them. They stood on the staircase watching Lisa. And as they listened to the beautiful music, they thought of their families, their parents, their brothers and sisters, everything that they had left behind. And as Lisa played, they sang along with her. And now Lisa's music was their music. And it told the story of their lives. Everything that they had left behind. And the months passed, and the war got more terrible. But the people of Britain were so brave, they went to work every day, and so did Lisa. One afternoon, she came home and found that the piano was gone. Mrs. Cohen walked in and saw Lisa about to cry. I had to move it to the basement where it's safer. Mrs. Cohen's lips were pinched with worry. Britain is at war. Bombs will soon be falling from the sky. At night, as the bombs dropped onto London, Lisa practiced in the basement. The closer the bombs, the louder she played, determined to keep her promise to her mother. listen to Lisa play the piano. I see how much the music means to you. Perhaps you should study at the Royal Academy of Music. It's one of our best schools, she explained. Would they ever accept me, Lisa asked. I'm a Jewish refugee. But you're also a gifted pianist, Mrs. Cohen said. But I don't have a teacher to help me prepare. Mrs. Cohen beamed. Don't worry, dear. Your friends will help you. The children would call out the names of scales. C, G, or they would tell her to stop rushing in the Beethoven sonata. You're rushing, stop rushing. And so it went. Finally, the day of the audition arrived. Lisa entered the Royal Academy of Music, entered the grand auditorium. It was completely empty, except for 3 judges sitting way in the back. She walked over to the piano, sat down, and played her heart out. Then she left. Each day felt like forever while she waited. 2 weeks later, Mrs. Cohen handed Lisa an envelope. She was too nervous to read it, so Gina tore it open. You've been accepted, she shouted. The children erupted in cheers. Mrs. Cohen wiped the tears from her eyes. Finally, the day arrived that everyone was waiting for. The news came. The war was over. The bells were ringing out. Everybody was celebrating in the streets. It was time for Lisa's debut. Mrs. Cohen and the Children of Willesden Lane filled the front rows of a packed concert hall. All eyes were on Lisa, who sat perfectly still at a grand piano. She took a deep breath, pictured her mother by her side, and began to play. The audience was up on its feet, cheering the moment the concert came to an end. I kept my promise, Mama, Lisa said softly, taking a bow. I held on to my music and never let go. And so, my friends, that was the story of a little girl who had a dream and never gave up. And guess what? That little girl was my mother. When I was little and her age, she told me that story when she taught me the piano. She told me to hold on to my music, just like her mother had told her. And I do. One day, I decided to write this book, Hold On to Your Music, because I wanted to share it with all of you. Find your dream. Never let go. Remember, a piece of music can tell a story. What will be your story?
Mona, that was stunning. It was absolutely beautiful. And I would like to say, as a daughter of a Kindertransport survivor, I want to thank you for the magical way you share your mother's story that inspires youngsters and families globally. And thank you so much. It was stunning. And somebody's just posted, Sarah Goldman, amazing, so incredible in every way. I totally agree with you. Of course, I've got quite a few questions for you. And for the audience here, do please take advantage. If you haven't added a question and you would like to, now's the time to do it. And until then, I'm going to start with the questions that I have. And the first one is, what inspired you to tell your mother's story through children's books?
So I think it's pretty much what I said in the very beginning when you introduced me, that I woke up that day and I remembered it all came flooding back. The memories of my being a little child, my mother teaching me the piano and telling me the story of her life. And I didn't fully grasp it. I was fascinated. There were mysterious characters. There was a train ride. But I think it took growing up and understanding more deeply the implications of what it meant to be the daughter of a survivor, the daughter of a refugee, and the absolute privilege and purpose that I had as a result of that, and a kind of destiny. I've often said that I believe the 6 million were etched on my heart, all those numbers. And I don't think I had a choice in a certain way. So taking that destiny and the combination of what my mother told me, when I finally arrived to maturity, it was so deep, it was so explosive inside my heart, that day when I was engaged to play that Grieg piano concerto that she made her debut in London on that stage, I decided, without having a clue how to go about doing it, I want to get it out there. I want to somehow find a way to share this story. And as I tell young people across the world, you're looking at someone who had no clue but had a dream and never gave up, even with all of the obstacles and the challenges. I think the question that you're asking me, and what really begs the answer, why an illustrated book? Why a book for younger children? Well, we all of us, children of survivors, I mean, today was a very powerful day. I was able to catch some of the speeches that came out on the Zooms. We all have heavy hearts knowing that the survivors, they're going, they're leaving us. The very essence of those that went through it and witnessed it and whose hearts were broken, we are losing them one by one, these precious souls. So it's incumbent on us. This is our deep, deep purpose and responsibility to find ways to make it alive and keep it alive. And especially to make it relevant to today, because as time goes on, it's a story more in the past and the past. And what also is so disparaging in a certain way is we continuously see man's inhumanity to man. We see the repetition of nothing will ever be as the Holocaust was, but we see so many terrible things happening and repeating themselves. So how do we make it relevant to young people today so that they will grow up as morally conscious human beings and know really the right thing to do in life? And I think my mother's little precious story takes its place along with all the other 6 million stories. No story is greater than another, but it's a story of a little girl who in the end held on to something. She held on to her faith, her being a proud Jew, and she held on to her dream of the music. So it's a very positive story. Children really cheer this, and I'm hoping that the next generation, through this magical illustrations and the simplicity of the writing, will embrace this story, and it will lead to breaking down the walls of anti-Semitism and that which separates us. That's my goal with this story.
And I think everything you do is so inspirational, and not just for the survivors, but for the generations to come, because you inspire us through your music, through your creativity, and it's just also hopeful and so poignant. And I'm getting so many comments, and I'm going to read some because I think everybody should listen to some of the reactions that I'm getting here. But for my next question to you is, what lessons do you hope parents take away from your books?
So we've come through an extraordinary year, right? The COVID, the absolute horrific. As a nation, we saw the killing of George Floyd, the rising anti-Semitism that is happening, that we all, as proud Jews, that we are all deeply concerned about. These are the prevalent issues of our time. So we need messages. And I always say my mother's story is a story of man's humanity to man. I'm alive today because of a generation and a group of people, sacred, beautiful Christians coming together with Jewish people. Exactly. To save the lives of 10,000 Jewish children. I wouldn't be alive today. When I had the privilege of doing the show in London, 2 runs that we did there, brought there by an angel in my life, a man that changed the course of my life, the great artist Hershey Felder, and produced the show, The Pianist of Willesden Lane. Every night I thanked the audience, and I looked across into the faces of the British people to say, you were an incredible, your parents or your families, this generation that came before you, you made a difference. And I think the message really is that we're no longer alone in this world. We're not separate. We really are our brother's keeper. We really, if we're going to make it as a humanity, we must tell the stories of man's humanity to man and offer these choices, these moral choices, to tell young people there really is right from wrong. There really is a way to walk through life, to be compassionate and open and absolutely break down the walls of hatred. I mean, we can't go on like this.
No.
So that's my goal.
And I think these stories and your mother's story is such an inspiration, because it shows our younger generation that in spite of it all, they were people like your mother and like my mother who made such successes of their lives in so many ways, both personally and professionally. And then there's someone like yourself who is the true torchbearer to the future. And what you're doing is global. And I'm totally in awe of you, because I just think you make such a difference. And one question I have here is, what point in your life did your mother share her story with you?
So she really began when I was like 6 years old, 7 years old, when I was on the piano. She always told me that each piece of music tells a story. She taught me Bella Bartok's The Bear Dance, and she got up and danced like a wacky bear. I just thought, this is so much fun. It was not black notes on white paper. There were stories behind all of it. And I think maybe that's the key to why we've been successful with the Children of Willesden Lane and the Pianist of Willesden Lane, because through the music, we tell the story, and the music becomes such a great character. And young people fall in love with classical music, witnessing this book and reading the book and seeing the show, because there is a story behind it. So she told it to me at a young age. And as I said before, I don't think I fully grasped it until years later. And then the fire was born in my heart.
And just towards the end of the video, you say your mother pictured her mother sitting beside her as she began playing. So the question I have is, do you picture your mother sitting by your side when you play?
So when I started working on The Pianist of Willesden Lane, I had to learn the art of acting. I was not a trained actress at all. I'm a concert pianist. And I had the privilege of working with a great acting coach by the name of Howard Fine in Los Angeles. And he taught me a lot about this great art form. And you load in images when you're on stage. And I would load in the memories and the images of different people. So your question, what do I think about when I'm at the piano? Yes, I would load in many things. I would imagine the grandmother that I never knew. I would remember in my beloved sister's home, the lighting of the Shabbat candles when there's that scene. So that every night when I walked out on stage, it was fully alive, fully in the moment that I was experiencing what this story was so that I could bring it alive. And I think of my mother when I'm playing a Chopin nocturne on stage. I imagine how would she have performed it? Her legato was always so beautiful and her phrasing was so beautiful. I will never have that kind of phrasing because it was informed by her life experience. I can try. I can remember. I used to sit with my mom and listen to recordings of Rubinstein on the old, ways that you would listen. And she would point out the legato, or she would tell me about the lunchtime concerts during the war and going to see Myra Hess play. And the lines were around the block at the National Gallery. And I'm hoping one day when God willing, the movie comes out, we will see those kinds of scenes. But it's very important for me also to point out, I've had these incredible angels that have helped me in my dream. As I said, I never gave up and I kind of just went like Don Quixote into the windmills. Rejection after rejection, just kept going because I believed in it so deeply. But then you meet people along the way that really believe in you and help you. And too long of a list to say, but I think their hearts were open to my infectious fever to want to bring that out. I mentioned Hershey Felder, who changed the course of my life. There's a person that works side by side with me, Jackie Madoff, in my foundation, to help me bring this to so many young people. And then the privilege that I've had to work with your great museum, one of the great museums of the world, in your educational mission, and to bring it to students here in Los Angeles, and the extraordinary opportunity to have my mother's artifacts displayed in your museum so that children can really come and see the last photograph that was given that you saw in the book when she was being cradled by her mother and father. My grandmother gave my mother a photograph, and on the back it says, so that you will never forget, from the mother who will never forget you. And that's in the museum, and young visitors can come and see that. And now, of course, my life has changed so dramatically. I've had the opportunity of a lifetime in a signature partnership with one of your partners as well, the extraordinary USC Shoah Foundation, to bring the story of Lisa Jura and many aspects of it to the globe. And that has been just an extraordinary opportunity for me that this happened.
And in 2018, when we commemorated the 80th anniversary of Kindertransport, how many students did you play to in that summer?
When we did the citywide read for
yes,
we brought it to, I believe, around 14,000 students at the museum.
Yes, and that was just here. That was just here.
Yes, and here in New York now, the USC Shoah Foundation produced the Willesden Read, and of course in the COVID, we've had to pivot like all institutions have. So we did a Willesden Read that was broadcast through Discovery Education, and the USC Shoah Foundation brought it to nearly 30,000 students in partnership with the New York DOE, the Department of Education, and the New York Public Library, where we did the first Storytime. And we are going to roll out many of these remote reads through Discovery Education that USC Shoah Foundation is doing, along with the various partners in Boston, in San Diego, across Texas, England. We have an ambitious plan, but far more of a plan is really the building of tremendous assets and the teaching of this book in multiple languages and multiple variations of the book. across
Yeah.
the
And I think it's probably one of the most valuable tools we could possibly have in a school, because of it inspires so much hope and so much future. If I may, I'm just going to read a few of the comments that we've received, because
Sure.
I just would like to share them, if you don't mind. And one of them is from Sarah Goldman, who said, amazing, so incredible in every way. And Susan Allison, that was so precious and so exquisite. I so wish my 5 grandchildren could have seen it. Please, can I share it with them? So I think the answer is yes to that. Yes. So the answer is yes, you may. Lynn Hole says, that was so brilliant and so moving. Thank you. And I think there's somebody else. It goes on and on. We love your beautiful story, Mona. Thank you so much. Such a sublime presentation. From London Beck. Wow, amazingly brilliant. What a great story, great illustrations. The illustrations were just tremendous. And what an incredible piano artistry. I could go on and on. I'm going to sneak in one more, if you don't mind. A recording of this program. Oh, this is from us to our audience. And for everybody to please know, a recording of this program will be available on Holocaust Museum LA's YouTube tomorrow. So, and you will receive an email with a link. So please do share it and pass it along to your family, to your friends. And somebody along the line, Sarah Goldman, I believe, so inspiring, bravo. And
yes.
and so on, and us, and then Barbara Stern, Mona, that was spectacular. Your mother would be so proud. You have held on to your own music and definitely to hers, and that's beautiful.
So
and,
beautiful.
Just so beautiful, and we can't thank you enough, Mona, for being with us and sharing her story. And on behalf of Holocaust Museum LA, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. It really was a tremendous session, and tremendous for all of us to hear from Mona and to watch this inspiring film. Just so you all know, and thank you, of course, to USC Shoah Foundation for their continued partnership. Just so you all know, Mona's book is at the museum. We will be opening next week on July 1st. So please visit the museum, purchase Mona's book, and please take a look at Lisa Jura's artifacts. We have in gratitude to Mona. And while you're there, please look at our substantial Kindertransport display. Before we sign off, I would like to invite everyone to join us next week. That's next Tuesday, June 29th at 11 a.m. for the last of our Pride Month virtual programs, Remembering the Pink Triangle. Representatives of Holocaust Museum LA and HIAS will discuss Nazi persecution of members of the LGBTQ community, the complexity of liberation for gay men at the end of the Holocaust, and the ways in which we can challenge identity-based persecution that exists today. You can also join us for our weekly Holocaust Survivor Talks starting July 2nd. Our Survivor Talks will be moving to Fridays at 11 a.m. For the duration of the summer, allowing you to begin Shabbat, the Sabbath, and the weekend with stories of inspiration from our survivors. Survivor Talks include time for questions and also intergenerational dialogue. For more information about our virtual events on our website, please visit us at holocaustmuseumla.org. A recording of this program, as I mentioned just now, will be available at Holocaust Museum LA's YouTube channel as of tomorrow. And Holocaust Museum LA brings you programs like today at no charge. So if you are enjoying our programs, we ask that you consider supporting our work by becoming a member. And to learn more about our membership levels, please visit us at holocaustmuseumla.org/membership. Mona, thank you again so much. And to the USC Shoah Foundation, and to all of you for joining us today. Do take care. and we hope to see you all again soon. Bye-bye for now. Bye.